Hello and welcome to Quintessential Experiences. On today's episode, I'd like to introduce you to Lesley from England, and she is a medium who is learning and practicing under Marion. We're going to find out about her fascinating life right from the start, from her childhood, because we think that's when it began. So we're hoping that she will begin her story from her earliest youth and tell us what her childhood life was like.
It's always something that seemed to be innate in me. I was always aware of spirit in whatever shape or form. It just seemed natural. I think it helped that my mum was a believer and used to talk about it as well. So it wasn't ever seen as anything that was kind of unusual or weird. I used to have quite vivid dreams, as I said, where I was flying over things often. And as I was growing up, it was silly little things like if the phone rang, I would know who it was that was on the phone before people answered the phone, or if somebody was knocking at the door, I would sometimes know who they were. And so it was just kind of that just gradual process. And it wasn't ever anything that was openly talked about, but it was just accepted as the norm. So I never felt weird, if you like, about what I was feeling or what I was sensing. And so yeah, and that kind of happened all the way through my childhood and my teenage years. And I left home to start my nurse's training when I was about 19. And that was when it kind of really sort of took off, because I found myself going to like local spiritualist churches as part of the congregation, and then gradually getting kind of sucked into that process and sitting in open circles. And that was where I met Marion, actually a few years in, sitting in an open circle. And that kind of then progressed to a closed circle where I developed enough such that I could go around and do public demonstrations, small public demonstrations of mediumship, and felt quite comfortable in that role. I then kind of had a break in my development for personal reasons of maybe about 15 years. And through ultimately the death of a mutual friend of Marion and I, we kind of met and joined back together again. And through lockdown, I was kind of sitting thinking, I wonder if Marion would help me via, messenger or, online, and just sort of try and get me back on that path, because I wanted to continue the progression. And so we've been doing that for a few months now, and it's been really good. I still feel as if I've gone back a huge chunk and I'm just building up my confidence again, but things are sort of, it's like greasing the wheel. Things are beginning to feel more fluid, but yeah, it's the confidence really. So that's kind of in a nutshell my story. It's just been a gradual progression. There was never been any conscious decision that I would go to a spiritualist church or I would go into a circle. It just kind of mapped out that way. Sure. And I would find myself, I just took advantage of the opportunities that were in front of me, and sort of it just led me on this path to where I am now, talking to you across the other side of the world. So
well, yeah. I think it's just remarkable. Now, can you let us be a fly on the wall? What would one of your apprentice sessions look like?
It generally starts off well, as with Marion, as you know, a bit of a catch up and a chat, and then we kind of open. Sort of Marion guides me through an opening process where I open my chakras, I surround myself in light. I ask my spirit helpers and guides just to come close and to work with me. And then once we've done that, we kind of work through if I'm sensing anything or I'm picking anything up before we start, then I'll say to Marion what it is that I've seen or what I feel, or so if there's any sort of messages coming backwards and forwards, we kind of do that at the beginning. And then it's kind of looking at using the tarot cards as kind of a map, if you like, as a prompt, as a tool in which to sort of focus my thoughts and just to help me link in with spirit. And we'll go through certain cards and certain ways that they lay out, and then as we progressed through that, then I started doing remote readings where people would who I had never met, never seen, would select numbers from the major arcana deck of the tarot cards, and I would lay them out and I would do readings, and Marion would often know the people, so she would be able to say, oh yes, that's right, or she'd pass it on. So that's kind of how it's kind of evolved, and it's just been building my confidence really to get back to where I was before the break. So yeah,
I don't think I've ever heard of anyone doing it this way. And when you're asking for the querent to give numbers as based on the major arcana, do they know that those are the numbers they're picking, or do you just ask? How do you ask them to tell you the numbers?
Just to give us 7 numbers between 1 to 21, and the order that they pick them is the order that I lay the cards down.
Understood.
In the spread, and so yes, they may not even know what number the cards, what the card relates to. That number, it's just numbers that come into their head, and so that's how.
Sure.
That's how I've done it. So yeah,
remarkable. So Marion, how has she been doing in
She's
her
been
apprenticeship
doing
and her
great.
training?
No, she's been doing great. With Lesley, all it is a bit. She needs a bit more confidence. She's had the most amazing results. You've got to remember, she's never done this live. She's never done a one-to-one reading with anybody sitting opposite her, so she can't feel the energy.
Waiting for her response.
Yeah.
Right.
She's doing it sort of backwards, if you like. All her work's been done on the internet, and in some cases not even knowing who the person is. I'd like to tell you the first reading that she gave, because it was absolutely amazing. A friend of mine asked me, I said, could you be a stooge?
She's going to start blushing.
I'd like to sort of give some numbers to, and she gave a very good reading, very ordinary, I think would be the word, But then all of a sudden she said, oh, I'm getting a plain Jane. And it still makes me go goosey to this day, because the girl that Lesley had linked with in spirit, her name was Jane, and she was a very plain girl.
Did she refer
it was just
to
the way
herself?
she said it. It was amazing,
And
and she's done that every time she's done a reading across the airways. She tends to muddle around a bit and not say what's on her mind. All right. And then all of a sudden she'll give a little bit of information that's spot on, so she's well on the way.
It's kind of difficult to give people hard news. I was talking to Maz about it. In my job, I have to break bad news. I have to give news that isn't really welcome, and I have to wrap it up in a kind of a way that is more digestible and not sort of hard hitting and in your face. And so I find when I'm looking at the cards and I see things that actually I wrap it up and I get a bit muddled and I don't say it how it should be, and so it comes across as a bit vague, and I should just, when it comes in here, just bring it out, and that's when it's accurate and true. So
it sounds to us that your day job as a neonatal nurse or pediatrician.
It's kind of a mixed role. It's called an advanced neonatal nurse practitioner. So I trained as a nurse and went up the ranks, and then I did extended training. So I cover medical roles and I work in a medical way on the wards and with the babies and
so it sounds to me that compassion is at the forefront of who you feel you need to be and in the way that you need to convey and deliver.
Absolutely. You don't want to say I find it really hard to say things that might upset people, but I know that I've got to get over that, and I've got to not try and wrap it up in nice pretty daisies. I have to say it as it is, because if spirit have given it to me, then it needs to get to the receiver, to the querent, or so I have to sort of pull my big girl pants up and kind of go on and do it, and not prevaricate around a bit. So Maz is completely right, as always.
How much do you feel that merging is starting to happen now?
I was always aware of spirit to a lesser extent, and now I get more of a definite view of who it is that I'm feeling, or the type of person or the type of essence that I'm feeling, and so it's kind of becoming more fluid. If that's answering your question, I don't know if it is, but it's kind of becoming just more fluid, more natural, and it's
the way you feel you need to be able to express and communicate and convey when you're at work as your advanced neonatal role. How similar is it becoming in being a reader, in being a medium that also has to communicate at a one-to-one level with another person, any kind of news?
I think the communication skills that you develop over the years in the job that I'm in makes you, I think it certainly, if you have that openness in your communication, and that, as you say, that compassion and that empathy, people are drawn to you, and you can communicate with them much easier. And the problem comes when you're having to convey a specific message that you're kind of being told, maybe not directly into your ear word for word, but you're kind of getting images and pictures and feelings, and you've got to kind of join all those things together to get that message over. That's sometimes where I'm still learning. I'm still sort of rusty. I still need to get that skill brushed up.
It's like a lost in translation kind of thing.
Exactly. And sometimes then I'll start talking and it will flow through, and it'll be, right, now it's becoming clearer, and I'll get a rush of information and communication, which flows much easier than maybe the next minute. It just kind of depends. But that's not spirit so much as me, sort of, as you say, getting lost in translation, being able to pick up what it is they're trying to convey and then get it over in a direct manner without, as you say, editing.
Without editing, yeah.
So that's the tough bit at the minute. I have no doubt that they give me the right information that they want me to pass on. It's just me interfering or me not kind of quite picking up exactly what it is they mean. But
typically in tarot readings, somebody will come and sit down and say to whoever is the reader, I'd like to know about this, that, and the other thing, but don't tell me any bad news. And I think your business, that what you have to do is very, very different ball of wax.
I mean, we get to give good news as well, and I love that. We get to give loads of good news as well as bad news. But I think if you come to a reading, whether it be a tarot reading or a clairvoyant experience with a medium, to come in and say, give me a reading, but don't give me bad news, means that actually you're kind of expecting bad news. I think but you don't want to accept it. And I think that's really tricky.
And they already seem to know what it is.
Absolutely. So, and I've been.
Don't tell me about my husband's affair.
Yes.
Oh, don't do that.
Don't tell me she's blonde and 25.
That's exactly what you get.
This is hard. This is hard work. I think the kind of things that we all do via our different pathways. I think everybody is going to have their story that they can share about something going very, very wrong, either lost in translation or it had to fall out because there was no way around it. And I think these are the challenges of kind of doing what we do. I'm happy to talk more about that if others are interested.
Yeah, it is hard because you're always it's not that you want to be fabulous. You don't want people to think, oh, you are fabulous. It's not an ego thing, but you just want, because I so strongly believe that spirit are there, that there is that existence of life after death, and that spirit are around you. They're there to support you. That the love is there. That you want them to feel that experience. You want them to feel that love and that positivity and that support.
Because that's what's at bottom line.
Absolutely. So that's where I get my buzz when people say, oh, wow, yes, that's just, oh, wow, that's fantastic. I think, oh, brilliant. You've got that would make you put a spring in your step. It might be something that you needed to hear to get you over a tricky bit, and knowing that you're surrounded by people who love you and are nurturing you from spirit, that's helping you over. It just gives you the confidence to move on, and that to me gives me the buzz rather than anything else. So when I get it right and I get the plain Jane, or I get something spot on, I'm excited for the person who is the recipient, because that must make them feel good, because it would make me feel good.
And then you end up being surprised yourself because of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it works. I know spirit are there. I know that they can communicate through me, but when it works, I think, wow, it works.
It's that moment. It's that moment of their feedback, that you realize, oh my gosh, I was spot on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that kind of, this works. I mean, I know it does, but yeah, it's just that kind of, just
it's
that
both.
rubber.
It's definitely both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
She's good.
She is.
And she's going to be better.
She is.
She's going to be, the greatest gift I think a pupil can give the teacher is that she becomes better than me. And, she adapts what I can give her to her own ability and just grows within that.
Exactly.
That's what it's all about. You've got to give off what you can, and then they add that bit to their bit, and it becomes bigger. Lesley does the most wonderful job, I think, in the world. She looks after these tiny little morsels of human life. Yes. And we look after these little scraps of human life that are no longer with us. So the two are very, very similar, both equally as sensitive and equally as small. They both, them upstairs and those that Lesley cares for, both need the absolute care and attention that we can give them. So.
Lesley, did you have in mind when you wanted to reconnect with Marion? Just, I guess, almost 2 years ago, you said that there had been a gap and you wanted to catch up and pick up where you had left off. Right. Did you have something specific in mind that you knew was in you that needed to come out? Or have you surprised yourself in finding out that which is coming out was not what you expected?
No, I think Marion has always been my teacher, right from when I first started going to an open circle. Marion has all those years ago, when I was kind of early 20s, Marion was my teacher then in the open circle. She was my teacher in the closed circles. And then the reason why I had the big gap was due to my husband at the time. He had a drink problem, and he found that his religious beliefs helped him through that process, and he became a very strong Christian. And then that kind of worked against my beliefs, and it was just a choice of either I carried on with my spiritual development, or I worked within my marriage and helped my husband, and I chose the marriage and the husband. So there was a long period of time when I was in touch with Marion, and it was that. So what happened was that my marriage, we separated a couple of years back, and I was sitting there thinking, actually, I'd immediately started going back to spiritualist churches, but I knew the next step was, I found Marion on Facebook again, and so I sent her a message, and we just started, sort of chatting. And there were some times we would meet up once a week, and there were some times where we didn't work, but it was because we needed to talk about other things rather than actually the cards or the mediumistic bits. There were other things in our lives that we were just chatting about. So that helped as well. It was a process, and it was a friendship that also is a teacher and pupil as well. So yeah, it would anybody else but Maz that would teach me. So
that's right. We also had a mutual friend that used to do the platform work with me when I first started. Her name was Anne Watson. And when I left Bedfordshire, Lesley became Anne's friend, where I was her friend, and Lesley was on the outside looking in a bit. Lesley then became the focus of her care, And then when she passed, we met up again.
Right,
We
yeah.
hadn't seen each other for a long time. But at Anne's funeral, we felt that connection immediately.
Yeah, it
And
was
I think
good.
Anne has sort of pushed us together again.
That's wonderful.
Absolutely. Mm.
It was as if we hadn't actually had that long period of time apart. It was just felt natural again. It was, yeah. Don't know if you felt that. I certainly did, but yeah. So that was really good, and yeah. And Facebook has its problems, but in some ways it's pretty wonderful in that regard.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
I think it depends on how you use it and what you make of it, how you engage in it.
Yeah.
For me, it's been a source of multi-miracles, and I'm very, very grateful, but I'm also very particular in how I present on Facebook and how I come to Facebook. And that also, it allows you you get to choose what's in your feed. So I've also taken the liberty to clearly whittle and hone that. So
that's it. I have to be very careful of what I put onto Facebook because of my job and my professionalism and my contact. So yes, I sort of control what goes on my news feed, and I will never talk about work. I will just say, oh, I've had a really good shift, or I've had a shift and a half, and that's it. And my colleagues that are in the same field and have the same thing, they know what I'm talking about, and so we have this appreciation of each other. But yeah, it's good, but you've got to manage it well, haven't you?
I have a couple of questions that are kind of burning in me. I hope you may indulge.
Yeah, if I can, I certainly will. Yeah.
If being an advanced neonatal nurse, you're there when the babies are born, yes?
Yes, so I'll get called to emergency deliveries. So if the baby's in distress or they're having to do an emergency cesarean section, because things aren't going to plan. We're never at normal births because they don't need us. We're always at the birth where there's potential.
At the necessary ones, yes.
Yeah. Where there's risks
have you noticed with your gift, are you able to know spirit, see spirit for these babies while they're in utero, or once they've emerged?
I can say in all honesty that I can't sense the spirit of the baby in utero or once they're born. When I kind of focus on the job that I need to do, but then as that's being done, I sometimes I am aware of the spirits around that baby that is there.
So not the baby's soul, but those who come to escort and protect.
Yeah, or just are just there to support the parents who are obviously in a really deeply distressed state. I can sometimes pick up that, but not of the actual baby. I don't.
It's okay. Have you noticed?
I've not tried to.
Have you noticed a primary spirit guide for the new soul that has just been born? Because I know from an Akashic perspective, the primary spirit guide is with the baby at the time of birth for the first breath of life for that soul. Have you sensed or picked up on anything that might be that?
I often sense like a 2 or 3 people around. It's often 2 or 3 people around the baby, and it's kind of difficult because you're kind of doing the job that needs to be done for the baby at the same time as you're aware of these spirits coming close. And I've often assumed that they're family, and sometimes I kind of get the feeling that they are a grandparent or somebody close to the family, but I've never actually tried to focus in and try and link in and see who the other spirits are. I am just very aware that there's this light and this love and these spirits there, but that's a challenge now. You see, if I kind of if I am working and I'm aware, I might now know to sort of switch my thinking to
so
try.
that comes back to the merging that I was asking about of your natural innate gift and ability with the service that you're also giving to new life in the world. Very interesting.
It becomes quite prominent when we're withdrawing care or the baby is passing, because that's when I am more open. I think I'm more aware, and then I can sense more of spirit around. So yeah, that's a bit of a challenge, and I will have to try and see if I can focus in and see what I can pick up.
Do you feel that this was your lot in life, or do you feel that this is what you were asked to do?
I think it's what I'm meant to do. I've never. I went through certainly in my job, I was wanting to be an air hostess, a marine biologist, a scientist, and then I just found myself filling out applications for schools of nursing. And I put it down to the Twinkle, because there's a character there called Sister Sue in the Dolly's Hospital, but it's just, and I just progressed through the nursing. So as I said, opportunities just kind of were placed in front of me, and this opportunity came and just dropped in my lap again, and I picked up and ran with it. So I don't know whether I've asked for it or whether, but I just know this is what I'm meant to be doing. I'm good at it. Certainly the clinical bits, I'm good at it.
Mm-hmm.
I've progressed without any major hiccups, and with the help of my spiritual work is improving as well. So yeah, I just think it's a word, synchronicity. I think it's just that's that. Yeah. Marine biologist, I was always a bit scared of sharks, so that probably wasn't ever going to happen. Yeah, but I dabbled with air hostess for a while as well. So yeah, but yeah, it was always this job, and I would always find myself back towards spirit. So,
well, I have a little bit of limited experience with Lesley and some of her work, and I can almost see you getting rid of the cards in the future.
I'm sorry.
Because when you were using your intuition and see or tell me what you saw, you were 100% bang on, and the cards almost seemed a little bit of second guess. But
So
I don't think you need the cards. I think you're going to push
ditch the
them aside
cards?
because you just say what you see.
Yeah.
And you're
I
right.
kind of I do sort of see them as a prompt and as a stepping stone. And when I worked previously with Marion, we sat in circle and things like that, we never used the cards. So yeah, I'm kind of I use them as a bit of an inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
I can see what their purpose is at this
I
point.
can too. Yes.
But I can
yeah.
see pretty soon they're going to be too slow for you. You're going to get it before the cards.
Yeah, I believe so. Definitely. Yeah.
Maybe you could ask the people to still give their 7 numbers, and you can just, but
put it
skip
on a lottery ticket
and just skip right over it and go right into your reading.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I think, and I can kind of see that sometimes because I lay the cards down and suddenly I'm kind of just getting information and it's coming out. But if you asked me to say which card it was linked with, I would have to I would really struggle. So
I had some early situations like that with palm reading, and people decided I was very good at palm reading, but really I don't think it had anything to do with the palms. I think it was something else, and it's just like, okay, give me your hand, and that was sort of the signal that says start yapping.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of it's an unlock thing, isn't it? Kind of unlocks your brain.
It kind of is just an unlock, and that's why I'm wondering. I kind of feel like, I would still probably invite them to give me 7 numbers, and I might still be holding the cards and something but I'm wondering if I might just skip over that point.
Yeah, just it all comes from spirit.
It all comes from spirit anyway. In terms of your expression of the difficulty sometimes of having to convey information, and that causes a little bit of internal resistance as well as a reservation. Have you ever tried asking spirit to just give you the words to speak?
I do. Well, I do kind of go back if I'm finding myself getting muddled. I kind of go back to them and say, just make it clearer.
Yes.
And then I get the information a bit more definite. I would love to be able to hear their voices in my ear and see them with my eyes, but it's kind of images and feelings and senses or phrases. Like, for example, before coming on tonight, the song was going around my head, Toto's Rosanna, and it was just, I don't remember hearing it on the radio or whatever, but the song, the riff was going round and round in my head, and that's kind of what happens. I'll get sayings or phrases or something that just keep popping in, and that's how they kind of talk to me. So I'll hear that song, or I'll hear a phrase, or I'll see a picture or a section of a person, a pertinent bit. I was talking to a work colleague. We were having a meeting about one of the students, because I teach as well, and all the time I was talking to her, I kept getting BFG and seeing these ears, and it was just so relentless all the way through that I did have to ask my colleague. I said, look, does this kind of mean anything to her? And her father had just died, and her and her sister were clearing out his house, and they said they used to tease him because, I'd forgotten, I meant to tell Marion this, she doesn't know this yet, he had BFG ears, big friendly giant ears, and that's kind of
that what BFG stands for?
Yeah, big friendly giant. So
Okay.
Roald Dahl's the story. So I was getting these BFG ears, and that was exactly what her father had, and that was a significant bit, and also his nose. So I sometimes get fragments of people that are pertinent, that are a key noticeable thing or identifiable thing about that person, and for my work colleague, it was her dad's ears were like the big friendly giant's ears, big and so that's how I kind of get the information sometimes. So, but I would love them just to speak into my ear, because then there would be no loss in translation. You know, it would just be, you tell me and I'll say it, and that would just be fantastic. But no, I get pictures and senses and feelings.
You're putting this on yourself.
Yes.
Do you remember when I said to you, I first started, I said to Spirit, yeah, okay, I don't mind working with you, I'm fine, but I don't want to see anybody's face. Do you remember? And then for about 4 years, I would see people side on, I would see the back of their heads, I would never see anybody face on. And I said to my teacher then, I said, I just don't see their faces. She said, yeah, that's because you said you didn't want to. She said, tell them you've changed your mind.
You'd like to try something else.
And so I think Lesley you've got to sort of say, I want to hear you. Come on, and you'll get it. You'll get it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm going to have to. I mean, it works, the bits that I get, but it's never like a whole. It's like they're showing me key bits that they want me to see, because they're key bits of information that the recipient will recognise. So sometimes I don't often see the whole person, as it were. So just bits, but yeah, just say it in my ear, and then there'll be no mistaking. Well, because I couldn't remember who it was. So
the only thing that came through when you said Toto's Rosanna was the lyric "Not been a year since you went away." That's what came through to me. Not been a year since you went away.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that.
Well, I was sort of getting a sense of a young woman coming in with you.
Mm-hmm. Who's this woman?
That is.
Who's the woman?
I think
we both know who that is. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She often comes in and helps. I think one of the annoying things was that I would feel this lady close, and Maz, you didn't for a while, did you? And then when when we started working together, suddenly she was there.
Is this Anne? Is this Anne who's coming through?
And and if that's
it's got to be. Yeah. She was a lovely person, very clairvoyant. Very
How long has it been since she passed?
2 years. 2.5 years.
Yeah.
2 years in March. Yeah, 2 years in March. But Angeli, I said to Lesley, it was quite strange. I said to Lesley, that's not fair. She's never been through to me. And we started on this quest with Lesley, trying to, motivate Lesley in a spiritual way. And it was really strange. I said, this is just not fair, Anne. We were friends for 49 years. Where have you been?
Yeah, why aren't you coming through? You don't call, you don't bring flowers.
Speaking of flowers, is there something to do with a rose?
Rose?
Yes.
A rose. I'm getting something.
Yes.
There is something unique coming through right now.
Definitely is.
Yes, that is Anne.
That is poignant. That is.
Yeah.
I finished with Lesley. We were working. I finished with Lesley, and I went in the other room, and I had a missed call from Anne Watson, and she'd been dead for 2 years.
That's my point. And did you see the
Really
pendulum?
strange.
Did you see the pendulum doing the Saturn ring?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that means I'm not just engaging in a Q&A. That means there is actual presence, actual work, actual
Oh, I know she's a guy.
in real time.
Definitely.
And that was
Yeah.
exactly when the rose piece came through.
She did have she did love roses, actually. They were she had a statue of a rose, didn't she, that was kind of, was it dipped in gold or something? That was
Did you plant the earworm? Did you plant the earworm in Lesley? Yes.
She loved music.
Thanks, Anne.
She loved music. Absolutely loved.
She's Anne is mentioning something that she taught something special to Lesley when Marion, hadn't stepped back into the picture, and she is talking about something to do with people's energy and chakras.
There was one key thing that Anne asked of me. She didn't teach me about chakras or energy, but she was concerned about her husband's, and he has quite a difficult energy. And she made me promise that I would always keep in touch with him, and not just because she was no longer in the picture, just walk away and leave him.
So that's what this is. And are you still in touch? Are you still in touch with him?
Yes, probably every couple of months. I send him a message to check that he's doing okay, and occasionally, if he's got something going on in his life, he'll message me and we'll have a chat. And when I say a chat, he talks a lot. So he talks a lot and I listen.
Anna's asking for a reading. She's asking for a reading of her husband.
Best of luck.
Yeah, see what you can convey to her.
Well, the first thing that came into my head was, well, Anne would always be very close to Kevin, so she would know what's going on.
She wants it
what's
through
going
you.
on with Kevin. But he has been through a difficult time, and I think he's struggling more than he thought he would do. But he's getting there, and he's slowly becoming more confident, and he's going out more with friends, or a limited. He has a very narrow field of friends, but he's had to go through a lot in these past couple of years, but he's doing okay. So
What would be his message? Go ahead, Mark.
What has he noticed from her? What sign or what signal has he noticed from her?
Because I'm getting the same question. What has he said?
He said
about her.
Anne put him in hospital, if you remember, Lesley.
Of course, yes.
Yes, he said Anne. It was all getting too much for him, wasn't it?
That's right. You see, I don't remember things like that. I'd say things and then they've gone straight out of my brain.
Yeah.
But of course, yes, that's right. He had been, as I said, difficult time. His dad died last year. His mum died this year, and he was having to deal with the house and their possessions, and as well as having to deal with being on his own and not having ample support. And I think he was just finding it all too much, and he ended up having some concerns around his gut, around his stomach. He was he did go into all the details, which I won't go into on thing, but he was admitted into hospital, and he said to me, I think this was Anne telling me I had to rest and has put me in hospital. Thank you, Marion. I had completely forgotten that. Yeah.
What she's saying right now, that his going into the hospital was her way of being able to deliver energetic healing from the 8th dimension that she was able to convey, or at least petition for, from the 8th dimension down here into the earth plane.
Looked like when he was telling me what was wrong, I was thinking, oh, this is going to be major surgery and stuff, but then it suddenly just kind of petered out and was just a transient thing and not a permanent thing. So yes,
I did say to her, Angeline, I did say to her, you know, once spirit have claimed you for their own, they never let you go.
That's true. And they
It
always
doesn't matter where you go.
and they always seem to test you harder each time. It's like it gets harder. It can get harder each time. And I do know that you know, whether it's just you know, you've run into a little bit of a gauntlet or an obstacle course just through the communication of what's okay to say, what am I allowed to convey. So
I've always thought, I really have always thought that, you know, if spirit are giving the information, then it's okay to forward that information on. You know, I've had every kind of person in front of me, and Mark will bear witness to this. I've had murderers, sex offenders. Yeah, I've had everyone that there could possibly be come to me, and the main thing I would say to anyone entering into this faith of ours is you are not judge and you're not jury. You're there to promote everlasting love and compassion. You know, I feel that Spirit's love is unconditional. So it doesn't matter what you've done or where you've been. You're there to transmit that love that's coming through from Spirit. So if Spirit said to me, this guy's going to die next Tuesday, I mean, I might say to him, you know, that, oh, don't make plans for next Tuesday. It seems like it's going to be a difficult day. Do you understand?
Oh, God.
You know, I would say it in some way. I would get it over to the person because I've been told it in that way. I've been told that people have cancer, and I've told them that they need to go to the doctors. I feel that they're really not well. You know, you don't say, oh, by the way, they're telling me you've got cancer. You just put it in a way that people can, a bit like Lesley does with her babies. You know, you put it in such a way that you're compassionate. So, but if they Spirit give you it, you pass it on. And that's all I could say on the matter, you know, really, honestly.
Mark?
Yes.
Spirit's a wonderful thing.
What advice and strategies would you have for us?
Well, myself, I don't work with people face to face like Lesley and Marion do, but in my line of work, I have to be in a lot of different settings with a lot of different people, and you just have to choose your conversations wisely, depending on who you're with. And there's people that have certain beliefs, there's people that have certain levels of comprehension, there's people that are wide open, which is very rare. But I tend to just blend in with whatever crowd I'm in, and you know, if you're with that,
go with that. Yeah.
I think when you have experiences like with Mark saying, when you know, when I was using my intuition and I was picking things up and it just flowed and it was much better. And with my own experience, when I've stopped myself and said, right, just stop, and just gone back and said, right, make it clearer, and I've had faith in Spirit in what they tell me. I have to remember those experiences because they've worked out. And once I've done that, they've worked out, and so I just have to build on those kind of lessons and think, listen, you know, you're digging a hole for yourself here. Do you remember when you were talking to Mark or talking to so and so, and when you actually just let go and didn't interfere, that the information came out? So I have to just build up my confidence in the fact that I recognize when I'm fiddling, when I'm editing, when I'm messing with what the message is, and just let the message come out. And I think as time goes on, that will become more of the norm than me going, how do I say this? Because they might get upset. I just need to trust that Spirit are giving me the right things to say. So
I think, Lesley, that it's going to be your natural progression when you start meeting the people that you're trying to read for.
Yeah.
You know, you haven't met anyone in the flesh. You know, so they have their own energy, their own force that they bring with them. And, you know, you just slip into that force. You know, don't worry about just perceiving Spirit. You know, I think, I don't know if you remember Joy, but she used to say to me, you make me believe in Spirit. She said, I don't see them, I don't feel them, I don't hear them, I don't do anything. Yeah. But she said, because of you, I know they're there. You know, and that's what I say to you. You know they're there. Let them do the hard work. Don't you worry about it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I think Absolutely. Just because I want to be good at it. I want to be good. And so when you want to be good, you fiddle and you mess around with bits and pieces.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's it. I don't ever want anybody, and I'm sure people will, but I don't want people to walk away and be disappointed that with what they've received from spirit via me. So yeah, I've got to stop fiddling, because that's what's going to happen. Stop editing.
Would this be considered a more direct engagement with spirit, Marion?
Yes.
Just engaging directly without fear?
Yeah. And I'm telling her all the time, don't doubt them. Don't doubt yourself. Just once you feel them around you, she knows they've caught her. She knows they're supporting her. And she will be fine. Eventually, one day she'll phone me up and say, I've heard the voice, because it will happen. It will happen.
So this
Anjali,
is now the way.
There's some last thing from Anne for Lesley.
Yep.
Oh,
okay.
Lovely.
Okay.
It was almost like a.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So this is what she's explaining to you. When you've made the connection with Jane or any of these beautiful souls that have passed on, just the fact that the connection has been made, the instant you feel when things are flowing the way they're supposed to, she said, that actually is the mechanism of their words coming into you. Don't miss it. Don't bypass it, because she said that's where it's actually happening. So it's almost like the instant you feel the flow, the words are already in there. And if you take a detour and go into your brain, you've exited the highway.
Yeah.
You've exited the highway, and she wants you to get back. She wants.
I'm seeing peacocks, and I'm seeing them like, when the males
with the big fantails.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
I don't like them.
Yes. So the peacock comes through as good fortune. Already yours. Good fortune, already yours. So I think Anne's message is quite clear, both through the words as well as through the image, that you've got it. It's already there. It's already coming through. What you have to do is you have to become the prime detector of the instant that flow comes through. Then you just hit start and go. What she is saying is that all spirit uses this process. It's a general teaching that the flow comes in, the words come in with that flow. Anne, we've so enjoyed having you with thanks, grace, and humility for blessing us with your presence and your continued presence and your continued wisdom, help, and support. I'd like to thank Lesley for the vulnerability to share and express, your concerns and your doubts. We're with you. We're just with you the whole way. Continue to surprise yourself, continue to surprise the world with your gifts. And it seems to me that, you're divinely carried in that which you are meant to do. So blessings be upon. Best blessings be upon.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Lots of love.